What's up, everybody? After Hours with our man here, Craig Smith. You know him from I Got Five on It on our YouTube channel. I know you guys are tuning in every week. He's at Top Flight on Twitter, as you see there. And here we are to break down a game that neither of us thought was going to mean much until now, which it meant a lot more than it was supposed to. So, Craig, run me through what you're thinking, because we had all kind of thought that they might sit the starters, and then even if they don't, they might run them a drive or two. They went deep into the third quarter. Talk to me about how you're feeling about everything that happened, and what was going through your mind as these possessions started to tick off and starters were still playing.
Well, this is supposed to be a celebratory occasion because the Chargers are, of course, in the playoffs for the first time since 2018. But what would a season be? Yes. What would a season be without some high Chargers drama? So, yeah, that's basically where I am. Spent the majority of the game very annoyed, specifically after the first quarter when Justin Herbert was still out there, and then seeing Keenan Allen out there into the fourth quarter, I think. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, he caught that touchdown pass from Chase Daniel in the fourth.
Yeah, so I don't know. I've had a headache now for about the better part of an hour and a half, so I'm getting the caffeine fix in because that'll help me calm that down a little bit. But same thing. Game wasn't supposed to matter. It didn't. You knew that they had the 5 seed locked up. So at that point, some guys had some incentive-laden stuff they wanted to accomplish. I get that. Has nothing to do with Herbert, Eckler, some of the other key pieces. After a first quarter where they went out in the early second, where they had a couple of scoring drives, that was enough to build up the confidence to ride it in the next week. But apparently Staley had other plans.
Yeah. That was a wild decision. So I thought, early on, I mean, personally, after that first touchdown drive, I'm thinking, hey, man, this is preseason. Looked great, moved down methodical, scored automatic, got Keenan Allen his touchdown. They look good on third down. Eckler was getting chunk yards. And then I'm thinking, all right, time to pull the starters. Because, I get Staley's argument with, which if nobody had heard yet, pregame he had talked about when he was in Chicago, they had a game in the last week of the season where it didn't matter. And they rested all their starters. They came out their first playoff game. They fell flat. They ended up losing. He wanted to not have that happen again. So in that regard, I understand. You want to get a little refresher. The offense is not as sharp as you want it to be. I get to getting some reps in. I totally understand that. First time around getting that touchdown, I was good. I saw all I needed to see. Then they punted on that second one. But by that third one, after that Gerald Everett touchdown, where they went 10-plus plays, scored in the red zone again on a pass from Herbert, which they struggled with. Once they scored that second touchdown, I'm thinking, well, this has got to be it. Because the win doesn't matter here. You're then putting your players kind of at risk. I get he wants to win this game. There's some pride there. But outside of just some brownie points and maybe earning some favor in the locker room, there's nothing much to gain here. You locked up that 5 seed. You're going to Jacksonville regardless. You want to be at full strength. And guys went out today. Mike Williams went down, which is going to be the biggest concern. Joey Bosa went down today. Kenneth Murray went out with a stinger. So it wasn't, I thought after a couple injuries that he would start to pull back a little bit, but he did not. He played Herbert well in the third quarter, which to me was questionable.
Yeah, super weird because the offense came out, and in those first few drives, you saw them establish a rhythm. They were pretty balanced. And honestly, they looked as good as they've looked in weeks, consistently for a few drives. And, again, I didn't understand the purpose of having them stroll back out there. I mean, the defense was okay. Russ's numbers weren't from a percentage standpoint, we're talking about just being efficient, weren't great. Yeah. He had some pretty big plays. I think he had like 3 50-plus yard passes in was it just the third quarter or somewhere around there? But honestly, I get not wanting to have the guys go in very tight next week, but I mean, we don't even know when the game is going to be. It could be very well be a Saturday game.
Yeah.
So So look at what you're risking here. You're taking a risk of having your starters in there playing, someone getting hurt, and having less time to recover on a game that you have to travel for on a short week. So I don't think the pros outweigh the cons there.
Yeah. So I'm not I'm not really mad at the process because I understand playing your starters and I understand, trying to get them ready and all that. I was with that. I didn't think they needed to sit all the starters just because it just felt like there were a lot of guys that needed to get some more reps, and especially offense. I mean, it looked good last game, but they needed to start clicking. I felt they looked real. If they would have sat the starters after that second touchdown drive, we'd be in a much better mood today.
Yep.
On this on this after hours for sure. But I know I get it. I know he wanted to rest the starters, and at what point do you pull them? But in my mind, it's after you score that second touchdown, and so the playing starters thing, which I know a lot of people were mad about. I'm not mad about that part. I think the way in which they kept bringing starters in late into that game, even after that Mike Williams injury, which we don't know how serious it is. Maybe it's just a little back spasm thing that he can take care of during the week and work out. Who knows? Maybe it's a strain that he can practice through. I don't know. We don't know any of that yet, but I have a hard time making a case for Staley and trying to win this game with these starters late in this game when you really didn't need to.
And what's worse is, Mike has an injury history has a back injury problem. He has a history of that. I mean, dating back to the Clemson days, he had broken vertebrae in his neck, and then you've got like the lower back injuries that seem to persist, and those things don't get better as you get older. And as an athlete, back injuries are probably the worst possible thing to have to contend with because they can flare up at any moment. And the tackle where he was injured, it didn't look like anything really big, but again, you're taking that risk. And it blew my mind to hear that they replaced that field just this week, by the way. You see all these guys slipping and sliding around. It's kind of like, well, what's the purpose of that? I get it. You guys have nothing to lose. Your season is over, but you could care less about possibly screwing us over. So maybe that, I don't know. I don't want to dig that deep into it. It's not a conspiracy show, right? So
let's get into it. It's week 18. What else do we got to talk about?
You can just start blasting it. You can blast the music, man. We can get it rolling if you want. I got a ton of them, but I don't understand. Like, I get it. Like you said, like you mentioned, I understand having the starters roll out there for a few drives. No problem with that at all. But you get into a point to where it's a meaningless game. I almost feel like the reason why it's so annoying now and why a lot of people are upset at the fact that they suffered a loss that didn't matter anyway is because they played the starters so long and they still lost the game. So it's just kind of like at no point did it ever get out of hand to where they could comfortably rest the starters, but it still didn't matter anyway. So, I think we're all kind of frustrated over a game that really, holds no precedence over anything. It doesn't mean anything moving forward. If you wanted to keep the guys nice and warmed up and ready to go in the next week, we get it. But into the third and fourth quarter, that's pretty much inexcusable to me. And I think I tweeted this, but, Staley spent the last month or so building up all that goodwill, man, and he might have just took a match to it.
In just a couple quarters. Yeah. And some stat I saw on our Discord, I don't remember who posted it, but it said when a team rests their starters in the last game of the season, when they go into the playoffs, they have a .333 winning percentage. When they don't rest their starters playing that last game, it goes up to .786 in their first playoff game. So I get it. Staley's playing the numbers. We didn't want the Chargers resting all their starters, but I do think when you look at guys like Derwin, who have been banged up, Pipkins, who's been banged up, Mike Williams, who has the injury history, even Eckler, who's been dealing with some bumps and bruises during the season. I don't know why you don't sit some of those guys. And I know there are some issues because they didn't have the depth on the bench to play a lot of these guys too. I just feel like you rest some of those guys. I know that you got to get some of your starters in, but maybe bench some of those guys that have that injury history and that need the extra rest. Bryce Callahan got it today. I thought some of these other veterans should have got it today too. They didn't. And the game doesn't matter. They're locked in the 5th seed. They're going to the playoffs, but it just isn't quite right today. It doesn't feel good after what had happened and how long they played the starters today and still losing in Denver.
Yeah, we've been riding high for weeks now, so they had to take us down a couple notches. We couldn't go into the playoffs completely happy. And I mean, even looking at Joey, understanding why he needed to get snaps. If you wanted to get him some extended work, I could see that. But also you're taking a risk with him because he also has an injury history as well. I'm not saying like, I think he played 50% of the snaps last week. I think I think that was what the aim was supposed to be for today too, but he got nicked up a bit, so that got cut short. I get that. But again, seeing Keenan Allen out there in the fourth quarter, I cannot get that out of my brain. It's literally burned into it. And I don't know, dude. I thought that I was calming down there towards the end of the fourth quarter, and you see Chase Daniels out there, and I was getting ready for a blooper reel. I thought we were going to have some fun, get to watch some really wacky plays. And he actually fared okay, with the exception that he decided he was going to throw a go route against Patrick Surtain. I think it was essentially a contested go ball to who was he throwing it? Was it Carter? Yeah, Carter's what, 5'8", Surtain 6'2", superior athlete. No, go for it. Try a 50-50 ball. Maybe he thought Mike was still out there.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very surprising. I didn't think Chase Daniel was going to move that ball much at all. Granted, they had a short field because of that botched punt. But man, I don't know. And by the way, if you guys want to post like news from Staley or the team about the Mike Williams injury, let me know. Everything else floating around Twitter, we've read it all, and that's all speculation at this point, especially a former Chargers doctor who we know is a quack anyway. But anyway, yeah, so the fact that we got Chase Daniel to go down and we saw him rush for a couple of yards, really give up his body at the sideline at one point. That ball he floated to Joshua Palmer at the back of the end zone on that 2-point conversion was pretty. He threw the ball behind Keenan on the touchdown, but he still was able to bring it in. There was a pretty good effort from Chase Daniel. I mean, obviously there was the pick late. That go route was suspect. Luckily, it was too far out of bounds. But yeah, I mean, Chase Daniel wasn't as bad as we had seen in the past, which was nice, and kind of made it a game there at the end.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see him in back into the second quarter for the remainder of the game. See what he can do with like a half or so to play. I mean, at that point, what did it really matter? And Chase is kind of living the dream anyway. What's the number? He's netted about 40 mil in however many years he's been in the NFL with like a handful of actual real snaps. So let him go out there and earn a little bit of that paycheck for once, man, and give Herbert a chance to chill out. He's already got like the tape on his shoulder. You see that under his pads, so recovering from whatever bruise he has on his shoulder there. You want to give him as much rest as possible. He already got his work. Let Chase go out there and do his thing. And from the looks of it, probably would have been just fine for a half of football.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about some positives that happened this game, because there were some. I mean, we talked about those 2 touchdown drives early in that game. They looked efficient, and I didn't think that Denver had much left in them. But for whatever reason, Chargers gave up a bunch of chunk plays, which they hadn't done all season long. They gave up, I think ended up being 4 50-plus yard passes, if I'm not mistaken. One before the half, and then I think there was like 3 in the third. But anyway, way more than we've seen all season. Samuel got burnt. We saw the rookie Jasir Taylor get burnt. And but in terms of the good stuff, I mean, the 2 touchdown drives, we saw Joey Bosa with some of his pass rushing chops today. Got a sack, kind of a cleanup sack when Russell Wilson slipped, but then also that play that he got hurt on was a big play where he cut inside the right tackle, got in Russell Wilson's face, got that incompletion in the red zone. That was great.
No, absolutely. Helped to end that drive, I believe. So, I mean, outside of just that, you got guys like Kyle Van Noy who's out there. Is it 5 straight games with a sack, or
Kyle Van Noy? I think it was 5. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's paying dividends also. Just guys out there getting work, continuing to produce. The defense wasn't perfect, but you did see some splash plays out there. Even Khalil Mack making a stop. It wasn't a sack, but it was a tackle for loss. And so we just are seeing what that looks like. Even earlier in the game, you're seeing they were using Kenneth Murray on a lot of obvious passing downs, blitzing up the A-gap, essentially like collapsing the pocket or making Russ move off of his spot a little bit, which was kind of, I think the idea was to force him into the outside rush. It didn't always work out because there was some really questionable non-holding calls that went on that I saw. But early on, they had some stuff working, and I think it's what you can look forward to moving into next week, something to build upon defensively. It seems like they've got some action going. I mean, we now get to see what it looks like. Derwin, Khalil, Joey, Van Noy, all those guys mixing up in obvious passing downs or just blitzing downs, even if you want to do some run blitzing, you can utilize those guys in a multitude of ways. And we've been looking forward to this all season long. And it looks like we're going to get to see what that, can be going in the next week.
Yeah. And we'll get to the playoff stuff in a little bit because Jamie and I are going to do a preview later this week. Craig, I want to get your take on all this stuff and this big matchup in Jacksonville in a little bit, but just want to finish up this game here. Michael Davis, John Taylor mentioned him in the chat. Man, again, huge game. I think he gave up 2 completions today, a couple incompletions. He looked great today, and really excited about Michael Davis going into the playoffs. And so Joey Bosa, just trying to go in my head. Drew Tranquil today, again, big day for him. And we're starting to see it a little bit. I thought, Denver kind of came in here, wanted to end on a high note. They lost their head coach. They're playing for their guys now. They got a special teamer back there calling plays and leading this team. And I think they had something they wanted to play for today. Chargers didn't really, and it kind of felt like, I don't know about you, and I'm on my sleeve speculating because I don't know what's going on in the players' heads, but it kind of felt like the players were like, how long are we going to be playing? Like, how are we going to be sitting soon? Do you want us to go into the third quarter? Are we going all 4? Like, what's the plan? And it didn't feel like there was a strict, like, hey, once it's halftime, everybody's sitting. It just felt like everybody was kind of like, oh, all right, yeah, I'll run back out there. Let's another drive. Cool. It just felt like it was almost too fluid for everybody. And didn't feel like everybody was real cohesive and knowing like when they're going to come off and like whether they wanted to win that game or not. It just felt like it was kind of all up in the air today.
No, I agree. At one point I questioned the effort overall going into the third quarter because it just seemed like guys were ready to be done. Yeah. Almost like they didn't understand the purpose of them still being out there. If I'm not mistaken, Staley did come out and say that, if it had been decided that they had clinched that 5th seed, then they may make some adjustments to the personnel plan going into the game. I can't imagine this was the plan. So I'm sure that some of those guys were a little bit confused in that aspect as well. And thankfully, more didn't go wrong. I guess that's something else to be positive about. Yeah. We don't know what the deal is with Mike Williams at this point, but there were a lot of risks taken with some very key players. And luckily, for the most part, we got out of it unscathed. So with everything that did go wrong in this game, with the frustrations and annoyances associated with it, could have been way worse.
Yeah. Want to give a shout out to Dean Leonard, who had 1 really good play on special teams, almost 2. Great effort from him on special teams. There was a lot of risk taking today. Outside, so Mike Williams, obviously the one you got to be really concerned about. Joey Bosa was kind of joking on the sideline. He was smiling. Who knows? It didn't seem all that serious. They were kind of, I think, being a little cautious with him. Kenneth Murray, stinger. We'll see how long that lasts, but usually not a week-to-week thing, kind of a day-to-day thing. We'll see the seriousness of that. But Eckler got decleated near the goal line today. Yeah. Keenan Allen got hit twice where his chin strap was up near his lips, like his helmet was almost off his head, chin strap in his mouth. He got hit pretty good twice today. And those are some key players taking some real big shots from Denver, who really today played really chippy. This was not a team that looked lost. This was a team that clearly felt the bad blood in that, division rival of the end of the season here. So, there was a lot going on, a lot of risk taking, and quite honestly, Chargers were a little bit lucky that they just had the injuries that they did, because they were not that they were headhunting, but they were very physical today. Denver was.
Yeah, Denver looked like they were playing motivated because they wanted to end the season with a win. And in regards to Keenan, that whole chin strap thing, I think that has a lot more to do with the beard. That happens a lot. That actually happens a lot with him. He gets tackled, he falls. If he falls on his chest, he pops up and does a celebration. Chin strap's like almost always covering his nose. Yep. So I think it's the beard, if I had to guess. But Denver definitely came out motivated and on a mission to get a W. You could tell that they weren't concerned with whether or not guys would get hurt or anything like that. This was all about winning at home, finishing the season on a high note, and basically trying to put out some good tape for whomever is going to be the guy going into next season. Guys are trying to make a case to keep jobs, And I guess, whatever they can put out there positively, whether or not it be for the incoming coach to keep them or for whatever their next destination is.
Yeah, and good luck to them, because that is probably the least desirable job in the NFL,
Yeah.
even with the game today, which works out quite honestly. If you're looking into next season, you kind of want them to kind of go out on that whim, kind of hope that somebody goes, oh, wait a minute, that Week 18 game, there's something in Russell Wilson, and then get them all next season and same old. But regardless, yeah, I mean, they were, and I get the chin strap thing, but outside of that, Keenan Allen took a pretty big hit that I was a little scared of. But yeah, I mean, that thing is always happening. That you're right about that part. But yeah, I mean, I don't. So are you concerned? I want to ask you, because I just want to get your opinion on this. Are you at all concerned after this game? Are you concerned going into this Jacksonville Jaguars game? Does this make you less confident in what happened in a game that didn't matter in the which and way they lost and the way they played starters? Or is this kind of like they were off today and you're still kind of you're still in it?
So, I mean, you kind of experience like all the emotions with this game. First and foremost, I'm always, or I've been since it became a reality, have been a little leery about this Jacksonville game for a couple of reasons. I know we'll get to that later on. But I think just overall, from the way the game started, you felt fine. And then as it progressed, you started seeing some things, and it could have had a lot to do with the players not understanding why they were still playing that affected their overall play. So for me, going into next week, I'm only slightly more concerned than I was before the game started because I don't know what's going on with Mike Williams. That's probably the only change here for me. Until we find out exactly how severe this injury situation is or isn't, my level of concern is just slightly higher than it was before kickoff.
Yeah. I think even if Mike Williams comes out unscathed, I'm not worried about any of this at all. The fact that he went down, couldn't get off the field by himself, had to be carted off to the locker room, had to have guys help him off the cart. That's concerning because it's the unknown right now. Yeah, I'm with you. So the run defense thing, they gave up a lot of yards on the ground today. They gave up a bunch of 50+ yard passes today, which is very uncharacteristic of them. Eckler fumbled today, which you don't see very often. Carter fumbled today, which, I mean, I don't know how you expect to get away with holding the ball way up here and not getting fumbled. But I mean, that's football 101, but that's just him holding the ball. But that is what it is. So, to me, it just felt like they were off today and there was just a lot of uncertainty in the air. I think they were already focused on Jacksonville. This game didn't matter anyway. And then you kind of take into consideration what happened last week with DeMar Hamlin and all that. Like, do you really want to go 100%? Do you want to go start hitting guys and taking guys' heads off? I know Denver didn't care. They had nothing to play for. Why not go balls to the wall? But if you're the Chargers, I think defensively, offensively, you don't really need to go out there and give it your all when you're already locked up a playoff spot. You don't want to hear that. You don't want your coach telling you that or anything, but I think it's kind of in the back of everybody's mind. It wasn't mine. Once they won, it didn't really affect me as much as the injuries and everything that happened leading up to that. The end result, I who cares about the loss there in Denver? But to me, it just felt like an off day where guys felt uncertain and already knew that they locked up a playoff spot. I'm not all that concerned. The thing that I'm concerned about is Mike Williams, like you said.
Yeah, I agree to a lot of what you're saying there about the confusion generally. I saw a few plays from Derwin where he looked like he was really tentative, which is something you don't see at all. And it, struck me once. I think he had a play. Was it on the touchdown was it the first rushing touchdown? No, they didn't rush for a touchdown first. Latavius Murray's touchdown, whatever play that was. Derwin had a clear shot on him and he almost kind of like escorted him in. And it was just really weird watching that because that's not how Derwin plays. He's always balls to the wall. I mean, we saw it against the Colts. Sometimes he chooses the ultimate level of violence when it comes to tackling. And today it was just kind of like, why? Why put in that type of effort? Why risk injury? So, let me go out here, play, get through this game, and eventually I'll be on the sidelines and we'll focus on next week. So I agree. It's probably a lot of guys not wanting to put forth their best effort, which doesn't always look the best when you're watching it on TV, but with good reason. I understand there's a respect thing. You want to have respect for the game. You also want to make sure that you're keeping your priorities in order. And it didn't make any sense to go all out this week and risk it when you're playing for so much more in a week.
Yeah. We got something in the chat here from Rohan. Said Staley says Williams possibly could have returned. In what world? I mean, like, he couldn't even walk on his own. How's he getting out there and playing again? Staley's lying.
The metaverse.
Yeah. In Madden. Is that what he meant?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, man. Well, okay. Well, I mean, that sounds good. That he's saying the right things. I mean, I'd like some like concrete proof of what happened and some list of exactly what's going on. I'm not sure we're going to get that. You think we'll get that?
I think he knew how bad the optics were, so he wasn't trying to dig too deeply into it. Everyone's supposed to be optimistic, right? Because playoff berth. So no one wants to, be a Debbie Downer. He didn't want to necessarily give as much information as he probably could have. And again, he kind of had to like cover his own butt a little bit because I'm sure he's getting peppered with questions about that.
Oh yeah. While we're here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because he was getting dragged online. There's no doubt that didn't go in the presser today.
Oh, yeah. I know some of those beat writers are probably just like they could not wait. They've got the notepads and recorders out just like foaming at the mouth to ask him the same question 10 different ways.
Yep. All right. Austin Gore Sr. says, Staley said Bosa was on a snap count and not injured. Thoughts? He looked hurt to me. Man, I mean, he looked hurt to me too. I mean, he was kind of bending over like he was hurt, but maybe he wasn't. Maybe he just, who knows? But
he called for the trainers. Like I believe he signaled for the trainer after he went down.
They were definitely looking at him. I didn't see him call. He might have.
On the broadcast, they said that he called for the trainer as if he signaled from the field. I didn't see it, but it's just something that they said. Who knows? Oh
yeah, I missed that. I definitely saw the trainers around him. So they're definitely looking at him. That could have been the case, but if he's on a snap count, I mean, I don't know. Kind of feels like Staley's just kind of covering his ass a little bit here.
Trying to survive into next week.
Oh man. Oh, come on, Staley. All right. Let's see. I heard okay, so I guess all right, let's talk about this before we get into you talking about Jacksonville, and I'll pitch in too here. But if Staley loses in Jacksonville, do you think they fire him?
No,
I don't either.
I don't think there's a chance he got them to the playoffs. I think that I don't think they would have gotten rid of him anyway, even if he didn't. But the fact that he made it, you can go back and look at how he quote unquote galvanized the team, got them through all the injuries, some of the criticisms, and was still able to make a playoff run. I think his job's safe. So regardless as to whether, they can get smacked next week. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, he's not gone. They got double-digit wins this season. They got the 5th seed. They locked up a playoff seed before the season ended. No, this team was good enough and bounced back enough to be a team that very well could go in deep into the playoffs here if they can get a win in Jacksonville. But I don't see a world in which even if they lose in Jacksonville, he's gone. He turned this team around in which they looked all but lost in the middle of the season. They were on a 4-game winning streak here towards the end. They beat good teams, the teams they needed to, did everything they needed to get the 5th seed in the AFC, a very hard, tough division here in the AFC. Got the 5th seed, and now they're ready to bang in the playoffs. So no, I don't see that happening at all.
On top of that, a lot of these guys on the roster now are his guys. So I don't think it bodes well to potentially get rid of that coach and how that, would affect morale amongst the rest of the team. So yeah, I don't think there's a shot.
Yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and let's talk about this game here. Jamie and I are going to do a big breakdown. We'll do this later on, but just thoughts up the top of our head before we go and dive deep. What are your thoughts to start on this Jacksonville game? How are you feeling about it going into Jacksonville?
So as I mentioned before,
I know you're a little scared about Mike Williams, but just
yeah. Yeah, no, well, not even besides Williams, because like I said before, even before the Mike Williams thing, Jacksonville worries me just a little bit from an offensive standpoint and some of the things that they can do defensively. But I think the Chargers should be motivated after Jacksonville came into SoFi and kind of slapped them around in week 3. Different set of circumstances, of course. You got, I think that was the first week that that Herbert was dealing with the rib situation. I think that was coming right off of KC the very next week. So we didn't even know if he was playing. And then you had Bosa lost in that game. You also had the babyface bully, a.k.a. Rashawn Slater, out in that game. No Keenan. So you're looking at a completely different scenario this time around. And I think they should be out for blood. So as worried, as concerned as I am about the game, I'm not to the point to where I'm panicked about it whatsoever. I still feel like the Chargers should win it, and I think that they will. Hint, hint. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling about it. I'm confident about it, but I'm just like, if I had to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, probably about like I'm probably like an 8.5.
You confident that they'll win?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I wanted to get into this too, because granted, Chargers and Staley deserve some kind of knocks against what happened today in this game. The game didn't matter. But when you look at what happened against Jacksonville and Tennessee in a game where you had to win and get in, and how bad the Jacksonville Jaguars looked, in which they could not get a first down in the fourth quarter when they needed a score. They won on, to me, what felt like a fluky fumble. It felt like Josh Dobbs still had his hand and pushed it forward. So they got a 15-yard not pass, forward pass, fumble recovery for a touchdown to win that game. You can't, as a Jaguars fan, feel as confident going into this game against the Chargers, who were humming during the season and looked good into this game until it kind of got lost towards the end of that game. But Jacksonville Jaguars fans are feeling a lot less confident than the Chargers fans should right now, because Jacksonville looked terrible.
I guess the only thing I'll say to that is it's a divisional game. Those things, like when you're talking about playing teams that you play twice a year, they typically tend to be close. I mean, we know how that looks when we play the Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders. Literally every year it's the same story. So I put some stock into it, but again, the Jaguars have been playing better as of late. So I'm not saying that like this last game's a complete outlier, but just from the improvement that they've made as the year has gone on, they do certain things that the Chargers aren't great at defending quite yet from an offensive standpoint. And they have really young athletic defenders, pass rushers. You've got Rayshon Jenkins out there making plays, which is hilarious, and contributing to it. Yeah. So he's actually like the game clinching play last night, which is go figure. After Henry had basically owned him multiple times that night, he comes through with the game that essentially seals the victory. But they have players that can give the Chargers some issues. But as long as the defense comes to play, I think Herbert and the rest of the offense will be able to put up enough points. Now that you got essentially almost your full complement of defensive players, I mean, we're not talking J.C. Jackson at this point because it's not a reality. He's not been there the whole season. But everyone else, it's a different story this time around. So, again, like I said before, my level of concern is not as high as what maybe I'm even putting it out there to be.
Yeah. So offensively, what do you see Jacksonville? What do you see that they do that you think will give the Chargers that could be an issue for the Chargers?
Versatile running back. Travis Etienne is what freaks me out the most. Trevor Lawrence is an ascending player, and I made mention to this before. The media wants badly for him to be better than Herbert. You can see it coming. So they want to prop him up, but they can't because he hasn't achieved as much. I mean, I know Herbert hasn't technically won anything, but statistically, he's blown like all of these records out of the water within his first 3 years. And they're looking for a reason to prop him up over Herbert. He can play. I still think he has some development, some ways to go. So he doesn't really freak me out as much as I think he does other people. I think the pass rush can get to him, throw him off a little bit. He's mobile. So you know how Chargers are with mobile quarterbacks. That could be a bit of a concern. But ETN is what who really freaks me out the most. I'm not overly concerned about, like, say, Evan Ingram. You got Derwin for that. And the wide receiving core isn't terrible, but Christian Kirk is a viable offensive weapon. He's over 1,000 yards receiving. They paid him a butt ton of money. No one understood why. And I think he's showing that, he might be worth the money. So offensively, more than anything is Travis Etienne. He's like 1A for me in regards to what my biggest concern is. He can run inside or outside. He can, he's a great receiver out of the backfield, so much so that last year they attempted to make him a wide receiver instead of a running back.
Yeah.
And so if you can find a way to contain him, because I don't think they'll be able to shut him down, they'll do a lot to scheme him open, get him the ball in space. And the Chargers like to concede the run. That's their thing. I don't think to the tune of like these huge chunk runs that they do, but they're willing to give up yards on the ground as opposed to in the air and over the top of their heads on the defense. If they can find a way to keep Travis Etienne under wraps, I think they'll be just fine. He can't run wild. He can't be the X factor for them. That is probably offensively my only real concern.
Yeah, and that's a big concern to have. Kirk definitely killed him the first matchup, and that's one of those matchups that's going to be one of those key ones for this playoff game, man. If they can limit Etienne and Kirk, there's just nothing else really going for the Jags, and I just don't think they can win this game if they can't get Etienne going on the ground. I think this is a real good game for the Chargers because. Outside of that, if you're making Trevor Lawrence throw, like you're saying about some issues in his progression, he's prone to those mistakes and is throwing a lot of picks and trusts his arm a lot. So Chargers can definitely force some turnovers if they can stop the run. Now you're talking defensively. This is a very fast, versatile defense. That scares me too. And what do you think this defense does for the Chargers in terms of some issues?
This is going to be a week where I feel like, and I know how everyone's going to feel, they're going to roll their eyes. The running game has to be a major part of what's going on here. They have to at least make it serviceable and make the Jags respect it. Because the last thing you want to do is have Herbert dropping back 40 plus times next week when, he has to contend with like young athletic pass rushers. They've got Josh Allen, they've got Trevon Walker. I think they have Arden Key also. So you've got speed on the outside, and Jamari Sawyer is not great against speed as far as pass blocking is concerned. Trey Pipkins, depending on how their knees holding up, is going to be put to the test regardless. If he was 100% healthy, it wouldn't be an easy day. And even at the linebacker position, they've got some really athletic guys in the secondary. I mean, you can go on and on. All three levels, they're young, athletic guys. So their speed is something that could be an issue. If you want to pretty much offset that, come out there and shove the ball down their throat at least a little bit. I mean, we see the power running game. That's all I've been asking for. Most of us have been clamoring for weeks since week 5 against the Browns, and they brought it out last week against the Rams. I have to go back to look at what happened today, but I'm not sure how much of it they ran. Don't end up in scenarios where you're going to have Herbert dropping back, like I said, 40 plus times. You want this to be a more balanced game. And so throughout the week, I'll take a look at the defense to see, personally what I find that can be attacked. But just from what I know throughout the season thus far, things that I've seen, you don't want to put your quarterback in a situation where they have to be trusted upon to win the game. We know Herbert can do it, but, you don't want to take that risk. If you can get out of this game unscathed, get a win, keep him from being banged up, you want to do that because there's more to go.
So, and yeah, I agree with you. That's what they're going to have to do. The balanced attack is huge for the Chargers. Peter wants to ask you a question, Craig. Do you have 5 on Bosa and Mack coming alive against the Jags with some help from Van Oe?
Yeah, man, for sure. I think it's a strong possibility. I think collectively there's going to be a lot that goes on that from a personnel standpoint, from mixing and matching, that Van Noy can offer to the rest of the defense and their defensive front. I'm not sure how exotic they'll get next week. They can pull out some really interesting personnel packages to attack that Jaguars defense and obvious passing downs. And like I said before, even if they just want to explore some different blitzing options. So, yeah, you'll see. I got 5 on it for you with a couple of these names that you mentioned. So I'll touch more on it this week.
Perfect. All right. Got an update on Mike Williams. According to Lindsey Theory, Mike Williams had to be assisted in walking out of the locker room by a trainer, so not able to walk on his own. Not a great sign to start.
I don't know. Lindsay Theory is really interesting to me because it's almost like she goes out of her way to be a thorn in Staley's side. It feels like it, man. Whenever he says something that's a little questionable, like she'll pepper him every week with a question. You can see it's kind of annoying for him to answer, but the fact that she put this out after he says that Williams could have gone back in, not shocked. She's doing her job though, you know.
She does seem to throw a little jab every once in a while, for sure. Looks like Papa reported the same thing, so we'll take that as it was. I don't know. Maybe he's sore. We don't know yet, or the extent. I don't know if anybody's got any actual information and details on what the injury is in a timeline, but I guess we'll see. Go ahead.
I was gonna say a 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver that can't walk seems like a long shot to be 100% and maybe less than a week.
Oh, he's not going to be 100%. Whether or not he's going to hang, yeah, exactly. Whether he's going to tough it out or not is remains to be seen.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be 100% at all.
Right.
I know that for a fact. Yeah, and of course, Staley's really gonna have to come to terms with what happened today if Mike Williams is out.
He's got a week ahead of him, so the questions are going to be really rough for the next handful of days. I mean, hopefully he's ready for it.
Quite honestly, he should be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there was a easy transition point where you take out the starters, and he just didn't take it. There was just something about wanting to win that game for whatever reason. He just had to take it. So go ahead and send your questions. I think we'll start wrapping up here soon. A lot of people asking about Slater. We got some stuff on it earlier. Jamie and I did earlier this week, which was, you know, people were asking the last month or so whether Slater was going to come in or not, and whether he was going to be healthy enough to practice. And I just told you I didn't have anything. And my guy was telling me that, you know, it was generous, whoever reported that he was even going to be back this season. So he didn't, and he didn't come back this season. And basically there has been no real updates. He's still week to week in terms of working back to practicing. I asked him, you know, what percentage would you give him that he could play the next weekend against Jacksonville? He said probably 40% is the number he gave me. He says it probably should be lower, but Slater really wants to get back with the team. He's motivated for the playoffs. So we'll see what kind of percentage the Chargers will give him in order to play him, whether they're going to give him a short leash, a long leash, so that he can recover in the offseason. Who knows? But with each week, those odds are going to grow, and we're obviously going to know more next week as they start practicing more. So once we have more information, we'll let you know. But Slater's working back, and but no real update or any real progress. That the news that he was back is something we've already known. We knew that he was close to getting back already, so that's not new information. But the fact that he's working back to playing, he's getting closer and closer with each week. So that's obviously a good sign. Yeah,
the offensive line being intact as much as possible is going to be key for this run, both sides of the ball. Now that I'm thinking about it, with the Jaguars, one of the interior players that gave the Chargers some real issues in week 3 was Roy Robertson Harris. So curious. I'm not sure what he's been up to lately. I just remember that particular game, seeing him flash a lot. So, you know, your interior guys like Lindsley's going to show up. I'm not worried about him at all. But, you know, the Filers and Zion, they got to come to play, particularly Filer.
So, Jamie, you're Craig. I'm so used to calling Jamie my co-host Jamie, but Craig's my co-host today. Jamie couldn't make it today. He just had other plans. He's okay. So no need to worry about Jamie. Craig, which playoff time slot would you prefer for the Chargers? You're not on the West Coast like some of us. You're CST. What would you prefer?
Well, I like the early games, man. I hate sitting around waiting all day. It's cool to have like the later slots. I understand for the West Coast guys, like you know, works out a little bit better. So I won't be selfish. I don't mind waiting a few hours. I just rather not play Saturday.
Yeah.
If we can be the Sunday game, perfect. And whether it's early or late, doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah. I really want it to be a Sunday game. Give Mike Williams just that extra day to heal up, man. Every day counts at this point. If he can't put weight on it right now and needs help getting out of the locker room and walking right now, the Chargers need as much time as they possibly can get. So I'm hoping for a Sunday game. Personally.
Yeah, keep the acupuncture needles in his back as long as possible.
All right. Blazing Bolts. Do you think Herbert's going to ball out next week? It's his first playoff game. The first time we get to see playoff Herb. Is he balling out?
He's got the majority of his weapons. I don't see why he won't. A lot of it has to do, like I said before, with how the offensive line shows up and also how much balance there is offensively. If the running game is respectable, I think he'll light it up. If he has to go out there and shoulder the load, I think he'll play just fine. He may have, a few bad plays here or there, but I don't. For the majority of the time when the lights are on him, he shows up, and almost, most of the time to an elite level. So I think he'll be just fine.
So we have from GS, who obviously has some experience with this. He had a back spasm. It knocked him out for a week and a half, but his BMI is obese. So a little bit different than Mike Williams. And maybe Mike Williams will be able to get back quicker than GS did. Glad you're feeling better, though, man.
Yeah.
So if you were coach here, because the answer is he will become swing tackle. But if you were coach here, Slater's back. What are you doing with Salyer? You pitching him in at right tackle, or are you just not messing with the offensive line? You making him swing tackle?
Well, I'm not going to push him into right tackle and immediately take Pipkins off of the field. I mean, that's pretty much settled. If Pipkins can go, then, I mean, there is a little bit of a quandary there because you don't rotate offensive linemen. You shouldn't. So you kind of end up in between a rock and a hard place. I personally, I don't know, just hope that all works out and that Slater stays able to go, and then Sawyer's just your swing guy. If something happens to Pipkins, then you can go ahead and throw him in there. Guys played literally all 5 positions on the offensive line. I know it's a difference, him not playing it all season long, but I feel much better about him than I would Foster Sarrell.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it. That's an easy move to make. But yeah, they're going to make him swing tackle if he comes back. And quite honestly, I mean, throwing a rookie out and right tackle in the playoffs, in his first start, that doesn't have a good recipe. That just seems like it's going to be bad news, and I wouldn't really mess with it. All right, man. Well, I think we're all good here. Is there anything else you want to add before we get off?
Let's just all send our collective prayers for Mike Williams' health as much as humanly possible. I mean, as healthy as he can be going into next week, and I think we're going to be good, man. I'm not concerned that the Chargers will really stand a chance of losing this game. Like I said before, you've got an entire week. Hopefully, Joe Lombardi's been keeping some stuff in the tuck here that he unleashes. Well, I'm almost kind of scared to say that, honestly, after some of the plays that he pulled out. Yeah. So let's not go too crazy. But, for instance, during the game today, I saw some stuff early. Out of some offset eye formation where he was getting some good motions going, some single eye formations where they were getting some movement pre-snap, and they got a little creative there. Utilizing that and running the pass game, some play action out of those different motions. So maybe he brings some of that to the table next week, a little bit of window dressing, and his playbook is beginning to evolve, and we see more of that in the playoffs. So everybody just hope for the best. I want him to do really well so the Chargers can win. I want them to win the Super Bowl, of course, but I still want him gone at the end of the year. So he can do as well as he wants. Either way, I want him gone.
Yeah, gone. Judged individually and not as a whole, hopefully.
There you go.
All right, so Serge wants it before you get off. A prediction for next week, Craig. You gave some, things to watch, which were good. I know Jamie and I are definitely going to be touching on it. What do you say here?
This is scary because I haven't given a score prediction in a month, and I stayed away from it because they were winning. But since they lost today, I guess the streak's been broken, so I can deviate from that.
Yep.
So let's say on the road, hostile is Jacksonville. They don't have a ton of fans. 28. Let's go 28-20. Chargers get out of there with an 8-point win.
All right. Good on you. Okay. There you hear it. Jamie and I will do our own score predictions and talk about this game. And in the chat, make sure to donate your back to Mike Williams. I think collectively, if we can all donate our backs, maybe he'll be out there and be closer to 100%. So
send him some plasma.
Yes, some plasma. Somebody volunteers tribute. We appreciate you guys joining in, though. Appreciate you guys. And Blazing Bolts can't wait for another 5 of them things. So on that note, appreciate you, Craig, for coming on, man. Always a pleasure joining us and taking over for Jamie, who couldn't be here. And thanks, everybody who tuned into a game that didn't matter. And I'm sure we're real frustrated and didn't want to hear us talk about it, but I appreciate you guys getting our opinions and still tuning in. So thanks, guys. Make sure to follow Craig. Watch I Got 5 on it on our YouTube channel. He's got his own YouTube channel. Just, you know where to find him. Go get a hold of Craig. Make sure you watch all his stuff. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, am I going to get in trouble if I say thanks, everybody?
You can if you want to. Go for it.
All right, Jamie, I'm sorry. Thanks, everybody.